Welcome back into another TFA Throwdown. Today we're going to be talking about James Conner versus Le'Veon Bell. Both going very similar in drafts. One's going RB20, the other one's going RB19 versus RB20. And today it's going to be me, Fantasy Rat 13, going against Robby at NFL Robby. You can find him on Twitter. So let's just get right into it. But before we do, make sure you hit that like, subscribe button. And for future content, we're coming out. We're going to be doing more. If there's something else that you want to do, let us know down in the comments below. Let us know which side you're on. Would you rather have James Conner versus Le'Veon Bell? So let's just jump right into it. Robby, where are you at? And tell me why you are higher on Le'Veon Bell than James Conner.
Absolutely. Let's bring the people in on the Le'Veon Bell side of things. Let's just start it off with Le'Veon Bell is just been an absolute workhorse his entire career. He had 300 touches last year. He's never had a season where he's gotten under 20 touches per game in any of his 6 seasons. So he's only 28 years old. Obviously took that 1 year off with the Steelers. People act like he's dead and gone. And so I think that's a big reason why he's so far down in drafts. He finished his RB 18 last year, and he's going even lower than that this year. So I think people are definitely sleeping on him. I'm not worried about Frank Gore. 37-year-old Frank Gore comes in. Everyone says Adam Gase is going to love him and play him all the time. No, there's 138 Le'Veon Bell carries last year. So Frank Gore can take his bite of the pie. I'm not too worried about him jumping into Le'Veon Bell's workload. Gore can still get 6 or 7 carries a game, maybe a target or 2 here, and Le'Veon Bell will still keep his same workload that he had last year. So yeah, we talked about what Bell did last year, and he was horribly inefficient, like terrible, 3.3 yards per carry. It was horrendous, and he still finishes RB18 because of that workload. But a lot of people think that was kind of a tell of Bell's game. It really is that offensive line. It was like the worst offensive line in the entire NFL. They only had 0.7 yards before contact created, which is 32nd. Dreadful, terrible. So what they do, they went out and they signed $102 million worth of offensive line, revamped every position. So they bring in Mekhi Becton, 11th overall pick. Huge, massive left tackle for them, going to be a good run blocker. Then they brought in Connor McGovern, who was PFF's 9th overall graded center from the Broncos. So they bring those 2 guys in. They have a slew of other guys that they brought in as well. Those are the 2 I want to highlight. So offensive line literally can't get worse. It's only going to get better. Yeah, I mean, with him getting 300 touches, better offensive line play, he's going to flirt with low-end RB1 numbers, high-end RB2 numbers, and people have him all the way down there like running back 19, running back 20. So I think he's going to vastly outperform his ADP and definitely be the guy I'm choosing over James Conner.
Why I'm taking James Conner is pretty simple for me, right? So one, I think we get to be prisoner of the moment and prisoner of last year, and we try to look at last year to project to this year, and that's how things are going to work, right? Like, we forget that James Conner in 2018 was an absolute beast. Let's just talk about last year first. So in 10 games last year, he played 54% of the snaps. He averaged 11.6 carries per game, 4 targets per game, 19 red zone touches, 4 goal line carries. He only had 464 rushing yards, 251 receiving yards. He did have 7 touchdowns, but he averaged 14.6 fantasy points per game, which was better than Le'Veon Bell's. 28% juke rate. He had 4 runs of 15 plus yards, 31.7 dominator rating, 208 yards created to 1.39 yards created per game. So you go back and you look at his 2018 numbers. This is where the big difference is. In 2018, he played in 13 games, 79% of the snaps, 16.5 carries per game, 5.5 targets per game, 40 red zone touches, 13 goal line carries, which was, I think, second in the league that year, 973 rushing yards, 497 receiving yards, 13 total touchdowns. His 21.2 fantasy points per game was 7th in the league. He had 15 breakaway runs, which is runs over 15 plus yards. That was 4th in the league. 60 evaded tackles. Faced 6 or more defenders in the box 33.5% of the time, and he also had a 4.7 yards per carry against that stacked front. Now, what happened last year to what happened in 2018 had a lot to do with Big Ben. Once Big Ben went down, that entire team sort of cratered, right? They had Delvin Hodges, Mason Rudolph, that entire offense just cratered. Now, we know Big Ben's back healthy. Of course, there's always that risk. Plus, we have to factor in that James Conner, can he stay healthy himself? He's never played a full 16 games. I don't like trying to play the game of, guessing game of is he going to get hurt, is he going to get not? Because maybe he does get hurt. Maybe it's week 15. Maybe it's week 16. I don't know that, and I'm not going to sit here and play this. I know this is a contract year for James Conner, and when James Conner is healthy, he's an absolute monster. He's still only 25 years old, and it's really rare to find a 6'1", 230-pound back who do the things that he can. And you also look at it, and only Todd Gurley, Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, and Alvin Kamara had more PPR points than Connor in 2018 weeks 1 through 13. So he finished as just the RB6 despite missing 3 games, and he also posted, like I said, the 215, 973, and 12 rushing, and then 55 receptions, 500 yards, and 1 receiving touchdown. There's all those things considered, and he is the absolute workhorse of this backfield, right? Another thing to take note of is I know there's some people that are going to rather go with they have Benny Snell, and they brought in Anthony McFarland, and is this going to be more of a Big Ben back? James Conner, like I said, still only 25 years old. I have a lot of question marks with Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell, you're right, that offensive line was terrible last year, and that had a lot to do with it. But he was the most inefficient running back in the entire league last year. He was basically really he was okay, right? He didn't have any boom weeks. He only had 3 weeks of over 20 fantasy points last year, and for a running back, that's not very good. Now, you are getting him in the 3rd round, and considering how high running backs are going, that's not terrible. So I don't necessarily hate his ADP, but I would much rather have James Conner. I think we are sleeping on James Conner. Last year, he was RB6, RB7 off the board. Now you can get him right around that same 3rd round range, and he has RB1 upside. He is, as long as he stays healthy. And I mean, look at Dalvin Cook. You go back to Dalvin Cook, and look, Dalvin Cook's now a 1st-round pick, and he was kind of the same way, right? His first 2 years in the league, he kept getting hurt, went off last year. I think that's reasonable to expect for James Conner in 2020, and so that's why I think he's an absolute steal at his current age.
Yeah, no, I think you make some good points, and it'd be remiss of us to try and say that there's an injury concern with one and not the other here, because both of these guys have had their injury concern in their history. So yeah, not even talking about that, but I do think each year Pittsburgh has brought in a running back, and so I think the Tomlin comments were very, very in James Conner's favor, saying that he's going to be the workhorse back. So that is good. But I think we've seen, it's happened now where James Conner either gets nicked up here or there. Not saying he might just get a full-out injury and leave, but he does, get nicked up here and there. And that's the reason they brought in Benny Snell last year. That's the reason they brought in Anthony McFarland. Those guys are going to get some touches here and there. So I think if we're looking at competition in that backfield, you were a guy that was high on McFarland for a reason. They brought him in, they're going to work him in a little bit. So that might just limit his ceiling a little bit for me. But right at RB20, I think you're right. That is a little bit of a value there. So I think the big issue is that we have to go back to 2018 to really see that season where we loved Connor. And part of that had to do with the quarterback situation. But 2019, Connor only saw 1 game with over 55 yards rushing. He just could not get it done. And they actually do have an offensive line. That's something I bring up, as a pro for James Conner, is that he does at least have a good offensive line. So, I think things will be different with Big Ben in town. I just definitely like Le'Veon Bell's PPR ceiling a lot better. He's going to get another 65, 70 catches. He got 66 last year. He shed some pounds as well. He's down to 215. So you were bringing up kind of his running style. I think he's going to be a lot better this year with that improved line and an improved body. So
yeah, well, see, like I said, I really feel like that Connor is much more of a value at where you can get him. Considering what I think his ceiling is, he has legitimate top 8 upsides in my opinion, and I just don't see that with Le'Veon Bell. It would have to be an absolute perfect storm, especially when you have factor in Adam Gase as the offensive play caller. And I know some of this is narrative based, but I mean, let's be honest. Adam Gase does not seem like a real fan of Le'Veon Bell. He doesn't really want him there. They brought in Frank Gore, and I could just see Adam Gase just giving Frank Gore more opportunities just to piss off Le'Veon Bell. I know that seems that is very narrative, and we don't have any proof to support that. But I think they brought in Frank Gore for somewhat of a reason, and I think Frank Gore is going to have a little bit of a role here. Does that mean Frank Gore is going to get pass catching work? Absolutely not. Le'Veon Bell is going to have that locked up, but James Conner also in his own right, gets plenty of pass catching work in his own right. And as long as Big Ben is on that field and healthy, I think that you can expect a much better Steelers offense. And so just in terms of the overall offense and goal line opportunities, which again, another red flag for Le'Veon Bell. Actually, now this offense wasn't nearly as good. Don't get me wrong, but Le'Veon Bell only had 1 goal line carry last year. 1. And he played 15 games and averaged 16 carries per game to James Conner, who had 4 goal line carries last year, and he only played in 10 games. So it doesn't seem like their willingness to use him, on the goal line. We know James Conner will. The year before, he had 13 goal line carries. So in a much better offense, a much more prolific offense that I think that they should be. They should bounce back this year with a healthy Big Ben. Obviously, if things doesn't, then that's a different story. But I do know that James Conner's still going to get pass catching work, and that's what I like about it.
Yeah, I think you again hit it on the head that both of these teams kind of need their quarterback healthy with Big Ben going out, and then Sam Darnold getting the teenage mono disease there. I think that's going to help the Jets. They went on a roll their last 6 games. Le'Veon Bell played a lot better. And I think with this improved offensive line, it's going to get more of those goal line opportunities. So as that offense continues to take another step, that's more attempts in that red zone for Le'Veon Bell.
So, all right. So that's pretty much what we got. I don't think that I really have anything else to say, or anything else to add. So let us know down in the comment section below. Which side are you on? You want James Conner, or do you want Le'Veon Bell at their current ADP? They're both going right next to each other. I think it's 404 and 405 a current ADP according to 4for4. So let us know down in the comments. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button for all the future content. The season's almost here. We're only about 3 weeks away, 3.5 weeks away from the start of the season. We're gonna have a ton of in-season content every single week, live streams for Q&As. If you have waiver questions, trade questions, we're gonna be doing all that stuff too. So we got a lot of great content coming out. Again, hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll see you guys again